Monday, July 6th, and welcome back to SamCentre. I am your host, Sam, and as always, it is CFL Victory Monday. It's a little bit of a sad Victory Monday for us here as fans of the Double E, but for everyone else across the CFL, 4 teams are going to be joining us on our Victory Monday. Obviously, we do not have the board and our full setup. We are on our last day being on the road here. Some live footage later in the video. You're going to love what I have in store, but there's a few things we need to talk about before we start the show. You need to go check out the Shorts tab and SamCentre Instagram. That is where you'll find all of the exciting content that we got to film this weekend on the road in Calgary, in Kelowna, and the future content that we'll get to film as well. Sometimes there's copyright music playing in the background, or I need to film things in certain ways that do not work for long-form YouTube. So, like, comment, subscribe, turn on notifications. Please go check out the Instagram. As always, let's run that intro.
Hey everyone, Milt Stiegel here. Make sure you check out SamCentre. He's doing some of the best sports analysts out there, baby. Check him out.
Hey, when the greatest wide receiver in Canadian Football League history tells you to check out SamCentre, you check out SamCentre. So a very special thank you to Mr. Milton Stiegel. If you're on Instagram, go let him know he's 100% correct for promoting SamCentre. That guy knows we're the best sports analyst in the business is. Moving on with the show, it's a bit of the dog days of summer, right? We have the CFL, the most exciting football league in the world happening. But outside of that, there's not a lot going on if you don't love to watch baseball every day. And if you're not into waiting on the MMA cards. Obviously, we had a bit of a hiatus in the MMA world, only for it to return with a vengeance, the return of Conor McGregor. That's going to be our UFC Friday card, of course. But the World Cup has continued to entertain all of us. There's been some exciting matches, and unfortunately, 2 out of the 3 host nations have fallen, with Canada first falling to Morocco by a score of 3-0, and then Mexico falling to England by a score of 3-2. Both of these games are disappointing results for the host nations. For Canada, I think there's a lot of really positives you can take out of this World Cup. You made it quite far, but it really did feel like the game was potentially winnable. You know, the first half, you were very competitive against a Morocco team, and then everything fell apart in the second half. You heard the manager say, oh, you know, we were the better team. Okay, but you lost 3-0, right? So on paper, statistics, they're going to mean nothing when the final score is the way it is. Obviously, you know, Alphonso Davies being hurt and not being able to contribute to the team, being their most dangerous player by a wide margin, had an impact on this. And hopefully, this is able to inspire future generations. Canada's going to be disappointed, but I would say this is about as good as anyone could have expected for them. As far as Mexico, this is going to be a result they're not happy with. England is a top nation. They haven't shown it in a lot of years, but Mexico hasn't either, right? So you were looking at 2 teams, maybe potentially evenly matched, but the nod went to England, at least on paper, and it was shown early. Jude Bellingham and Harry Kane were obviously able to propel England, even being down a man for most of the second half, able to get them into the next round. Congratulations to them. There's 1 host nation left in action now. The United States will play their game July 6th. As we're recording this, it's tomorrow, but as you're watching it, it is tonight. So if you like soccer and you want to check out the World Cup, it's going to continue to roll. Ronaldo's still in action, Messi, Mbappe, and the USA. England, there's a lot of good reasons to tune in. However, if you were only tuning in for Canada, only tuning in for Mexico or the host nations in general, you're going to be a little bit disappointed. But there's a lot of guys here who are showing why they're the best in the world. You know, you have Holland out of Norway. You have Mbappe out of France. You have Messi out of Argentina. Ronaldo out of Portugal. You know, there's just an incredible amount of talent. You have Yamal out of Spain. And so all of these guys are competing now. Bellingham out of England in order to try and win that golden boot, get the most amount of goals in the competition. So if you're a casual observer of the World Cup, like we are here on SamCentre, I think this is extremely exciting and something that you can tune into every single day. There's always matches. If you're a degenerate and you're just looking for something to watch, throw soccer on in the background, throw some CFL on, and then look forward to the return of Conor McGregor on Saturday, July 11th. There's also going to be 2 exciting World Cup games on that day as well. So we're potentially talking about July 11th being one of the best sports days we've had in a long, long time. Looking forward to that. We will, of course, be breaking all of that down Friday's episode of SamCentre. But now, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about the next segment we're calling Oh Canada. And the reason we're calling this segment Oh Canada is simple. After seeing everything that I saw this weekend, I put together a little bit for you guys. Nothing too fancy, but some footage of the Calgary game, some footage of the touchdown series Kelowna, some of the things I was working on. Like I mentioned, please check out my other channels and other forms of being able to watch the content in full, but this is just a teaser. Let's run it now.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command, with glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free, from far and wide, oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
And I hope you enjoyed that bit of live content we were able to include in this episode. An ode to the CFL, an ode to Canada. Let's move on with our CFL Victory Monday. And I know what you're thinking. SamCentre, how can we do Victory Monday? We don't have the victory board. You're right, but through the power of editing, we're going to pretend. Let's throw it up there, editor. And by editor, I mean me. Moving on with the show, we had 4 teams getting to be on the Victory Monday board. 4 impressive wins, starting with a game we broke down on our Friday's episode, the Stampede Bowl. A game I attended live, and I got to watch the Calgary Stampeders put up 58 points on the Toronto Argonauts. 58 points. And if you're a fan of Calgary, if you live in the Calgary area and you want to attend their next home game, they actually have a special promotion where they discount their tickets by whatever amount of points they scored in their previous win. But it's only on Victory Monday. So for today only, their tickets are going to be discounted 58%. Hey, that's a pretty good deal if you love the CFL. But as for their performance, Vernon Adams Jr. obviously tied the single game passing record for Calgary. Most touchdown passes in one game with 6, and he probably could have broken the record if the game wasn't already completely out of reach. For Toronto, this was a game from the beginning, wasn't really winnable. Calgary was locked in, was absolutely dismantling your defense at all times, and didn't give your special teams really an opportunity to do anything or create plays for you. So it was all on your offense. Calgary was able to pull away early and often, and Toronto really couldn't get anything going outside of just tossing the ball around, which does work. They were able to put up a lot of points. However, when the opposing team puts up 58, you kind of don't really stand much of a chance on offense to match that. So Calgary is going to be really happy. I think overall they're going to be pretty happy with the night as a whole. The Stampede Bowl was pretty well attended. Stampede is obviously the next couple weeks, so they had some performers from there. A lot of country music. There were some festivities on the outside. Really happy with their performance in front of the home crowd. Hometown went home happy. Let's move on to the next game where that was not the case. The Ottawa Redblacks dropping to 0-4 against the Saskatchewan Roughriders, losing 27-22. And for Ottawa, one day you'll get on that Victory Monday board. And I kind of thought maybe it was going to be this game, right? They went up early, explosive action from the very beginning on the side of Ottawa, and then they started to fade. The championship pedigree of Saskatchewan really took over. They were able to bounce back from a tough loss against Toronto on their away soil, right? But now they went to a true away game against obviously the worst team in the league, or hey, what appears to be the worst team in the league. They're being competitive in these games, but at a certain point, I think they mentioned it on the CFL broadcast here on the Sunday game, and I kind of like the analogy. You see a dog playing a piano. You see it once and you think, man, that's really cool. But then you see it a couple times and you have to start asking yourself, is the dog any good at playing the piano? And that's what we see with Ottawa, right? They're a team that can be competitive in most of their losses. A lot of these losses are extremely close, within one score, other than the Toronto blowout, obviously. But does that really matter at the end of the day? Because all of these losses are still losses. You still have a lot of questions, maybe a few less questions at quarterback, but you don't have a quarterback who's going out there and winning you the game. You have a quarterback who's going out there and remaining competitive in these games. But still, Jake has not shown you that he's able to really take control, win those games late. Where on the flip side, Trevor Harris and the Saskatchewan Roughriders were able to bounce back after their first loss of the season, show their championship pedigree, and show that against a team like Ottawa, they're able to dominate the game and they can come back from a rough start. Because other than, the 10-0 lead for Ottawa, it was really all Riders after that. So Corey Mace and the whole coaching staff has had his boys fired up, ready to play. Going to be exciting to see them the rest of this season, because if they're this hungry and playing well, the West really does seem pretty wide open again this year. So Saskatchewan has as good a chance of anyone to win this, right? Moving on, this game's going to hurt a little. I can't put the double E up on the Victory Monday board, and I wish I could. But as a fan of the CFL, I think it's good that the BC Lions were able to get their first win of the season in Kelowna in the touchdown series, because they obviously dropped the first game against the Calgary Stampeders, and they were threatening to be dropped to 0-4. And if that happens, it's a bit of a disaster for BC, and obviously it didn't. Nathan Rourke and the BC Lions showed why they are a team that is going to be competitive for, I believe, the rest of the season. A few tough losses at the start of the season, really struggling on the defensive side of things, struggling with being able to put together any form of consistency on offense outside of the fourth quarter. But this game was so different. Early on, they were able to run the ball and effectively establish their ground game. And then Nathan Rourke was able to do his thing through the air. They were able to get quite a bit of help from the Edmonton Elks offense, as, Cody and the rest of the Elks offense kind of got outside of their game plan, in my opinion. And I think that was the biggest issue that we're going to talk about in this game. Justin Rankin ran the ball 7 times. And I get it, okay? The game script does kind of determine what you do on offense. And he didn't have a ton of success in those 7 rushes, but the ground game was never really established. Cody just kept throwing the ball over and over again, threw for almost 400 yards. And a lot of that did come a little bit later when the Elks were already playing from behind. But for most of the game, you weren't behind by very much. Other than the big play on second down, where BC faked the sneak and threw sort of that Tim Tebow jump pass over the line, got 40 plus yards, which led to another touchdown, kind of blew the game open from there. Obviously, you see the final being 36-24. But for most of the game, it was pretty well in reach. And the Elks' game plan is not to just be that team who relies on slinging the ball around and moving in that way. You need to play off of your ground game and Justin Rankin. You need to play off of those sort of teams or those sort of things. And when that's not happening for you as a team, I think you're going to see the Edmonton Elks struggle. This game was winnable. So for Edmonton, I don't believe this is panic button mode or anything like that. For BC, though, I believe this is a really good game because the Elks didn't get dominated. They simply got beat by a team in BC who played well. And for BC, that means that you didn't play a team in Edmonton who's terrible in these things. You played against a good team and you won. So that's exciting now for the rest of your season because you're hoping you can bounce back. You play the Elks again. You play some winnable games coming up. So if you can bounce back in the West, we see maybe Edmonton at 4-3, 3-3. Maybe we'll see Calgary around that 3-3. Winnipeg is obviously evened up at 2-2. So BC is right back in the thick of things if they can put together a couple more wins in these next couple weeks. But this is really their season, right? For Edmonton, Not that you had a little bit of time to fall back on, but if you were to ask the Elks after 4 weeks, are you happy being 3-1? They're going to say yes. And now for the Lions, some momentum to build on. I think the Elks returning back home for their game July 9th, some home cooking. That will be next. We'll be back. Don't worry about things. When we get back with the Victory Monday board, the double E is going right back on there. Super fun game to watch. So I want to talk about Kelowna and the show they put on. Really cool. A ton of food trucks, a lot of festivities for the fans pregame. Talked to a bunch of them. Everybody was really excited and fired up. The setup they had was quite interesting. They did the best with what they could. It's obviously not a full CFL stadium. The Apple Bowl did their best hosting, but thank you to the city of Kelowna. What an excellent showing, and I hope you can get a little bit more in the future. It is with a heavy heart that we break down the final game of the week with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers defeating the Hamilton Ticats by a score of 14-13. And no, it's not with a heavy heart because I hate the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. It's with a heavy heart because we lost one of the game's greatest quarterbacks in Bo Levi Mitchell. He went down with an ankle injury, and it was honestly quite gruesome. We don't need to elaborate any further, but the stretcher came out, the ambulance was called, and he was rushed immediately to the hospital. So prayers to Bo Levi and his family. That's a tough one. And for the Hamilton Ticats and their fans, an even tougher result, right? Losing the game is one thing, but losing Bo Levi, and especially the way that game was going, because you were on that way to potentially winning and moving up the standings, being tied with Montreal, looking good in all of those facets, to now dropping the game and being tied with Toronto and looking at things and thinking to ourselves, where do we go at quarterback the rest of the season? I like Trey Ford. I think Trey Ford is able to come in and make plays where you think, how in the world is this guy a CFL quarterback? Like the plays he's making are incredible. He played incredibly well in youth sports, and now he comes in here and he makes highlight reels in the CFL. Okay, end of story. Trey Ford is good. Hamilton will be good. And unfortunately, Trey Ford is literally Two-Face from Batman. And I'm talking about the Tommy Lee Jones version. Because he gets in there and he makes plays that make you believe this guy's incredible. And then he gets in there and he also makes plays where you go, how is he a CFL quarterback? Because some of the throws are just not in good places. He'll oftentimes overthrow receivers. I think he has a bit of a trouble with his feet in the pocket, or he can't necessarily see over the offensive line. I'm not sure what it is because I saw him over and over again in Edmonton, miss reads, throw into double coverage, and overthrow receivers over the middle. It's kind of what you saw in the game against Winnipeg this week, but it's a little bit hard to judge him having to come in as a replacement. I'm sure they don't drill a whole lot of Trey Ford passing when you have Bo Levi Mitchell there. You weren't really expecting this to happen, so let's see how they look now with a full week of preparation. I'm sure they're only going to get better throughout the season. The West is a little bit more competitive than the East is what we're looking at, so I think for Hamilton, they're probably still in an okay place. Them against Toronto will be interesting because if Toronto and some of those teams start to put up a lot of points, then I worry a little bit about Hamilton and that new form offense. Your offense is going to change a little bit though. If you do go with Trey Ford, now you can run a lot more quarterback run plays, where with Bo Levi Mitchell, you didn't do any of that at all, right? So I'm not so quick to count them out for the rest of the season, but I do think this is a big blow for the Hamilton Ticats. And on the flip side for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, you found a way because you also lost your quarterback early on in this game. The injury obviously wasn't as gruesome, at least on the surface, right? Zach Collaros did go down in the first quarter with an upper body injury, but it wasn't something where we all thought, looking to ourselves live, okay, well, they need to, get this guy off the field immediately. He came off the field, kept his pads on, kept his helmet on, but it was clear he wasn't coming back in the game. To Winnipeg's credit, they knew that points were going to be tough to come by because they bring in their backup, a guy who also dominated Canadian youth sports. This was a matchup of two Canadian youth sports quarterbacks, both completing a pass in a CFL game for the first time since the 1960s. So for an O Canada moment, really cool. As far as game quality moment, not so cool. These guys didn't do well at all after Bo Levi went out, after Zach Collaros went out. And before that, it was looking like a really exciting game. Points were being scored. Collaros was airing it out. Bo Levi was airing it out. And then after that, you saw a lot of sacks, a lot of pretty short checkdowns. Because again, On the flip side, with the amount of quarterbacks in the room now in Winnipeg, I'm not fully convinced, that they're going to roll with who they roll with. I think Drew Brown might end up taking over in that room by the midweek if Collaros is still hurt. I'm sure they're splitting reps quite a bit, so not one guy is getting a ton of reps as the backup. So similar situation to what happens in Hamilton. Now these guys are forced into action, and they kind of suck. So we can't judge them too hardly. Winnipeg feels really good about this one, though. They're able to get that win with the Elks losing, with BC winning, with Calgary winning as well. They're able to really start to potentially equalize these standings in the West. Now, there's no clear front runner over there. And so Winnipeg winning this game when your quarterback goes down, obviously they didn't intentionally hurt Bo Levi. It was such an unfortunate injury. Winnipeg played the game the right way. It just, the way that you get rolled up on, sometimes that happens, right? So looking forward to our power rankings on our Wednesday show. We're going to have to break it down because there is some movement. Unfortunately, I'm not sure I can have the double E at number 1 anymore, but I might still do it just to rage bait you all. Let's talk about the week ahead. Obviously, super exciting matchups in week 6 of the CFL. And then more World Cup action. The round of 16 continues into the round of 8, which is the final sort of matchups. The big hitters will all be in action. And then the return of Conor McGregor. UFC is back. Conor McGregor, Max Holloway 2. We are going to run a special UFC Friday show. I'm going to put in some extra production value for this for you guys because it's worth it for Conor McGregor, the king of MMA, coming back. Who knows how many times we're going to get to say this, but an exciting week ahead. As always, though, guys, like, comment, and subscribe. SamCentre out.
Yo, I'm sat on the throne, but I'm looking at the blueprints. Building a temple where the spirit leaves its footprints. You be a knight's the most high. Asked what I'm needing, didn't ask for peas or for enemies to be bleeding. I asked for the wisdom, the hokmah, the insight to distinguish the dark from the frequency of light. See, I built the first house, see the wood and gold plate between Jeshurun and Boaz. Standing at the gate, the pillars of the world, severity and mercy. The path is narrow, man, the road is getting thirsty, but the temple lays stone, that's the trick for the blind. The real masonry is the structure of the mind. Seal of the king, 2 triangles entwined. The lower reflecting the upper design. Master of the spirits, I made the demons work. Building up the temple where the shadows used to lurk. It's the wisdom of Solomon, the heavyweight crown. Building up the spirit while the system falling down. Building up the Yeah, they say I had the ring, the brass and the iron, commanding the glacier, the wolf and the lion. See, the demons are just facets of the ego and the greed. I harness the shadows to plant the holy seed. You gotta kill the beast, you gotta make it move the blocks. Put the vices in the furnace, turning keys inside the lock. 72 spirits, yeah, I kept them in the vessel. Every conscious man has a demon he must wrestle. If you don't control the lower, then the lower controls you. That's how the temple falls and the spirit gets through. I saw the vanity, they're chasing all the wind, but the wisdom is the treasure underneath the skin. I sat with the queen, yeah, Sheba brought the riddle, trying to find a set and not the sides or the middles. She saw the cupbearer, the order of the table. Realize that history is more than just a fable. It's the key of Solomon, the magic in the map, finding your geometry on the righteous path. From the quarry to the corner, I'm the stone they rejected. To the master workman saw the spirit was perfected. Modern day Solomon, I'm building in the ends, turning all the haters and the demons into friends. The temple is complete when the heart is in tune. From the rising of the sun to the setting of the moon. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity unless you know the